She's made 54 movies and won 2 Oscars, but the most challenging role of Elizabeth Taylor's career has been her own life. I'm Peter Graves. This is Biography. Elizabeth Taylor has been called the Queen of Hollywood, and it's certainly appropriate. She represents everything we've come to expect from the movie capital: glamour, talent, sex, scandal. And although she made her first movie half a century ago, she's as contemporary as the newest dish on the menu at Spago.
I'm not like anyone, I'm me.
There's a certain kind of danger about Elizabeth in a way, do you know? You kind of don't know what she's going to say. She's a little bit unpredictable.
I want to be a famous rider. I should like to hunt.
I think Elizabeth Taylor is a very, very good actress. She's probably an underrated actress. The trouble with being so beautiful a woman is that nobody is willing to take you seriously as anything except being a beautiful woman.
Whom dost thou lovest best?
I believe she was in love with every one of her husbands, even if she married Burton twice. And she marries for love. And I admire her for that.
Liz, over here, that a girl.
She always says that, you know, she and the press are part of the yo-yo theory. You're up, you're down. If you're down, they want to pull you up. If you're up, they want to bring you down.
I have a great passion for life.
When speaking of legends, one immediately thinks of my friend Elizabeth Taylor, a winner who has withstood the perils of life and show business while continuing to shine as one of the brightest stars in the galaxy.
Elizabeth Rosamond Taylor was born in London on February 27, 1932. Her parents were expatriate Americans, her father Francis an art dealer, her mother Sarah a stage actress who once performed on Broadway. Elizabeth first performed in public at the age of 3 before Queen Elizabeth at a charity ball. Mesmerized by her first applause, she stood rooted on stage and took bow after bow. In 1939, with World War II about to break out, the Taylors moved to Los Angeles. It was the era of the child star, and 7-year-old Elizabeth, who had intensely blue, almost violet eyes, and an exotic set of double eyelashes, was quickly noticed.
I think her mother appreciated early on that she had a rather extraordinary child. Elizabeth Taylor was very beautiful as a little girl, doll-like, and the mother was stopped on the street often, people to pay compliments to her.
It wasn't long before a screen test at Universal was arranged. Elizabeth was quickly placed in a film, There's One Born Every Minute, with Carl Switzer, the child actor who played Alfalfa in The Little Rascals. The movie came and went without notice, and Universal didn't know what to do with the pretty youngster.
There was a famous quote about them saying after seeing her on film that her eyes looked too mature, too old for a child. So after this one film, which was a B movie really, they dropped her option. And then shortly thereafter, she ended up at MGM, and they, of course, knew exactly what to do with her. It was the right studio at the right time for her.
Unlike most of the other child stars at MGM, Elizabeth couldn't sing or dance. Her acting was questionable, and she didn't have dimples like Shirley Temple. But she was strikingly beautiful, almost disconcertingly so.
In 1942, I was making 2 films really at the same time. One was called My Friend Flicker, and the other one was called Lassie Come Home. And this little girl was brought onto the set who was, I began laughing because she was so extraordinarily beautiful and a very mature face for a child. The most astonishing looking child I would have ever seen.
Stardom came quickly for Elizabeth when she landed her first major role at the age of 12 in National Velvet. Tough and ambitious as well as pretty, Liz wanted the part so badly she had 2 teeth pulled in order to wear braces required for the role. The movie was a huge success, and Taylor an overnight sensation, winning rave reviews for her fervent performance. while captivating audiences with her half-girl, half-grown-up looks.
The fact that she was so striking looking was sort of at odds with really her own personality, which was pretty always down to earth at that point. So if you watch a film like National Velvet, you see that enthusiasm for the horse and the enthusiasm for whatever is going on in the scene. You're really seeing what she was like at that time.
MGM rewarded Elizabeth for her work in Velvet with a $15,000 bonus and $750 a week salary. Not bad for a 12-year-old girl during the Second World War. Fully a third of that salary went to Elizabeth's mom, who got her own weekly paycheck as Liz's full-time chaperone. Sarah Taylor had given up her own career as an actress, and she embraced the role of Elizabeth's stage mom, serving not just as chaperone, but publicity agent, manager, even acting coach. Always present on the set, Sarah would give secret hand signals to Elizabeth and direct her through scenes. Liz eventually rebelled against her mother, but she was also intensely dependent and loyal, at one point staring down the fearsome Louis B. Mayer for being rude to her mom.
Elizabeth said, "I don't care if I don't work here anymore, but I don't want you to talk to my mother that way." She wouldn't go back unless Mr. Mayer apologized to her mother, which he did.
Ironically, after National Velvet, MGM didn't quite know what to do with Elizabeth, who was maturing so fast it was no longer possible to cast her as a girl.
And he held me so tight and kept saying he loved me. And all the time he went right on kissing me.
MGM threw her into a series of assembly line productions, giving her a frivolous, if increasingly seductive, persona.
Haven't you forgotten something?
Maybe.
I'm spoiled and egotistical.
Seemingly overnight, Elizabeth had become so grown up and alluring that MGM cast her as Robert Taylor's wife in a movie called Conspirator. Hedda Hopper, prodded by Elizabeth's mom, proclaimed her the most beautiful woman in America. Taylor's MGM playmates watched her metamorphosis with awe.
I was still trying to grow up as a boy, and suddenly she went from this child to this gorgeous woman. When she was 15, I remember I was standing out in front of the commissary. It was the first time I saw her really dressed up as a woman, and I mean, she was so beautiful that your mouth fell open.
Despite her looks, Elizabeth was still a girl, living a strangely cloistered, controlled, surreal existence, doing her homework in the MGM schoolroom dressed in evening wear, sitting for countless publicity stills, always on call for studio promotions.
I christened thee the MGM Mayorship.
On the surface, it seemed like a dreamy fantasy life. In reality, Liz was working under enormous pressure all the time. Friend and former child star Michael Jackson understands.
We had a similar type of childhood, never really having the opportunities enjoyed by others. We shared a quest in search of the next step of acceptance from an adoring public who never really knew our inner turmoil.
Your life is never your own, so it sort of belongs to a studio or the public, or it's a very difficult way to live.
Beneath the glamour and allure, Elizabeth's life was, to a certain extent, a fake. MGM staged her high school graduation ceremony, paying a local school to let her get a diploma with bogus classmates, and arranged her first boyfriend, All-American football player Glenn Davis. Desperate for a real date, Liz and a few MGM friends formed a club called SLOB. The acronym stood for Single, Lonely, Obliging Babes. By the time she was 17, Elizabeth was ready to escape, and marriage seemed an obvious and thrilling way out. One thing MGM and Sarah Taylor couldn't arrange was who Liz actually fell in love with. Conrad Nicky Hilton was 23, handsome, heir to the Hilton Hotel fortune. To all appearances, especially for a girl bred on fantasy, he seemed a fairy tale match. Elizabeth was filming Father of the Bride when she announced plans to marry Nicky Hilton in early 1950.